Let's go ahead and call this meeting to order. And Erica, could you do roll call, please?
Definitely. So we have Arlene Zortman.
Here.
Josh Stransky.
Here.
Glenn Pepper.
Here.
Jenna Reed. Lauren Sully. Here. And Carrie Snow.
Here.
And then staff, we have Carol Linda. Molly O'Donnell. Here. Lisa Gallagher. Here. Kendra Daniels.
Here.
And Sarah.
Here he is.
Okay,
Wrong way, didn't you?
so we're on.
It's normally me running that file.
Yeah, I know. That's a look for today. We're on what?
2.
All right, so approval of the minutes from the June 13th, 2023 meeting. Do I hear a motion?
I'm going to do the minutes.
Second?
I'll second.
So we have a motion on the table. Any discussion on this? All right, let's vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed?
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? Motion passes. All right, let's move on to number 3, public invited to be heard. Anybody from the general public that wants to be heard at all?
So I am Georgetta Johnston, 320 Homestead. I live in Spring Creek Apartments, and I understood that you could come and talk. And so I like where I live. I've been going on 7 years, but there's come up some issues of noise and chaos and people are leaving their TV on at nights and don't really care about your neighbors to a certain extent. I've had some myself, but I talk to them. And I feel like that maybe they need to bring up some way that people shouldn't be having their TVs on at night, all night long, where people can't sleep. And the lady above me was running the sweeper through the night, and then she was dragging furniture. So I dealt with that for a little while. Then I went up. I hadn't really met her that much, but I went up and knocked on her door and asked her about it in a nice way, and she quit for me. Then the one down below, my grandkids came and stayed some, and so they bothered her a little bit, and we worked that out. But I feel like some don't care, and I'm not the only one. There's lots of people there that are having people's stereos, just making all kinds of noise. If you live right next to their bedroom, your bed's right there and their TV's right there, and it just goes all night long. There's no way you can sleep. And then we've kind of got, and I've talked to Harold and Lisa, but Harold, it's kind of, they're getting like oxygen things, different things that are loud. They're really loud, and it's not that you don't like everybody. You want to be kind, caring. In fact, the little lady fell and blacked her eyes, broke her nose, and I've been going in and out, kind of being nice. But it seems to me like it's getting like a nursing home and a medical center. Actually, several of them I've done that to in a nice way. But you can only do so much for people. But I like the place, and I'm just thinking what's going on here. I like my place. You know, I like living there. And I don't want to be somebody that somebody feels like it's not appreciating. But I think working together some way, some of these issues need to be worked out, because I just don't think it's good. You know, it says in the Leafs there's supposed to be times when people can have quiet time, and you know that we're in a place that's supposed to be where good neighbors, you work with different things. You're always going to have people that are bullies and different people that act rude and different things. And I can tell a couple things about a lady who borrowed my broom and then she wouldn't bring it back. So I just texted her in a nice way. Then I bought her a broom. Then she got mad and said I wasn't a good neighbor, but I never got unkind. I was kind, smiled, overcomer. So it's not like I want to cause trouble. You know what I'm saying, in a nice way? And I don't feel like you'll know unless a person comes and brings it. And this is what you have housing for, is to work things out where everybody can get along. And I'm a senior. I'm a widow of 4 years. My husband used to be on the housing board, on the senior board, so I'm familiar with you. But Lord bless you, and I pray that some way we can work some of these situations out. But I don't think if we bring them, some people complain, they don't do anything about it. And, you know, I'm not there to get sick and get depressed. I'm there to enjoy myself and be good to my neighbors and do the best I can. And I'm an older lady. I may not look like it, but I'm heading for 80. So thank you for listening. Lord bless you.
Thank you so much.
My name is Kevin McKee. I'm also from Spring Creek, 320 Homestead Parkway in Longmont, Unit 216. I'm just here to explain a few things. I'm not complaining. I just want to explain a few things that do go on that are difficult to deal with, and we're actively coming up with some solutions, and maybe we can come up with some more. I'm speaking for the benefit of all tenants that have a difficulty with noise. I'd like to reach part of the nuisance prohibited section of our lease, and that no one in any manner should interfere with the quiet enjoyment by adjacent property owners or other residences in their premises. And any loud noises, music, noxious, unpleasant odors, disruptive behavior, actions, disorderly conduct, or any other action whatsoever that would cause other occupants to suffer a disturbance or interference with the rights, comfort, conveniences, or quiet enjoyment of their own premises. This is in our lease. We all sign this. We all try to abide by this. That's why the lease is here. I think it's a good lease. And we just happen to have some people that occasionally break the lease, as you know. And then what I've found, there's not really enforcement of the lease. So you can have a noise problem or an odor problem, and I've been told, call the police, it's a public ordinance, the managers won't do anything in that regard, and you have to call the police. And I've been told by the police, please don't call us, it's really not the appropriate way to use city funds. And so we're trying to figure out how to mitigate some of these problems. And it has to do mostly with TVs, oxygen machines, walker with wheels, and stereos. It starts with the construction is not so great, and we need to look at this, I hope, from the city planning and architect's point of view, where we can build better buildings, where we have better walls and ceilings and floors that can help mitigate noise. I have not been able to use my bedroom for 6 months. I sleep on my couch. I use earplugs. I use pillows just to try to get some sleep. The oxygen machines, as we know, go on 24 hours a day. So you have a noise, a hum, a vibration all day and all night. Some of the TVs have been on until 2 a.m. to 5 to 6 a.m. Very difficult, even though wearing earplugs and pillows. I'm also getting new earplugs that will help from my point of view. And I'm also in good terms with my neighbors. And we have an active, ongoing dialogue about how we can mitigate the noise and come up with a solution together. So we are still trying to work together. We're still trying to communicate. And lines of communication are open, and we're making some progress. But I just want people to be aware that this is a problem. It's all pervasive. And in the future, there will be more oxygen machines. There will be more things like this. So how can we begin from a planning architectural point of view to mitigate some of the noise up front when we build some of these new buildings that we have?
Thank you so much. That's 3 minutes.
Oh,
Appreciate it. Okay. Let's go on to number 4, organizational updates. A, advisory board election results, and welcome to our new member, Josh.
Yeah, so I just wanted to report that Josh Stransky and Arlene were selected for the 2 vacant advisory board terms. Jean Christopher is our exiting board member, and I do have a Longmont book that I would love for all you all to write a thank you message or whatever you would like We want to provide this to her as a gift, and I was going to pick up some flowers for her as well, just as a thank you, to make sure we give her kind of a personalized thanks, because she's been on the board for a very long time. So I'm going to either pass this around or maybe leave it at the back so you can take your time. Let's keep that going. And so then I thought everybody could kind of go around and talk about our roles and our backgrounds and what we bring to this advisory board for Josh's sake. And Josh, why don't you start with yourself?
Sure. So I'm Josh Stransky. I guess on the personal side, I'm a Colorado native, born and raised in Aurora, and parents are school teachers. Grew up in Aurora. Ended up going to the University of Denver for my undergrad. Met my wife when I was a senior in college. Got married, and we've been in the Front Range ever since. We actually live in Erie on kind of the northwest edge, I guess, is kind of the way that I describe it. We're closer to downtown Erie. And we've got a 8-year-old boy and then a 10-year-old boy as well. From a professional side, I mentioned I went to the University of Denver. Right out of school, I started with First Bank and went through a training program with them and was with them for about 12 years. And then an opportunity came up to move to a smaller community-based bank that's actually, our headquarters is in Cherry Creek. And so I moved over to them. And then in the last year or so, was selected to be the regional president for our Northern Colorado location. So we've got a location in Boulder, we've got one in Loveland, we've got one in Fort Collins, and we are actively looking actually for a site in Longmont. From a professional side, primarily on kind of the finance side, and have been involved in a number of different areas that are kind of affordable housing related. Came up with when I was with First Bank, some down payment assistance programs that helped first-time low-income borrowers purchase their homes. I've also been involved in high-tech financing, and so I've got some background there. And then from a nonprofit experience, I served as the president of the Developmental Disability Foundation, which is kind of the fundraising arm of the Developmental Disability Resource Center, which is a Jeff Co organization. I started with them probably 12 or so years ago when I was working in Longmont, and just stuck around. It's a great organization that helps folks with developmental disabilities. And then I was the president. I kind of worked through the Wild Children's Museum in Lafayette. Again, I mentioned my parents were professional. They were school teachers, and my wife was a school teacher until we had our first boy, our first son. And so I kind of see the value of hands-on learning and learning through play and things like that. So that was what got me interested in that. And now I'm interested in joining the board. I've joined on the advisory side just because I see the value of what affordable housing can provide, not only for individuals, but also for the greater community. And I feel like I've got some professional background that can kind of help, just with a new perspective. So.
I'll go next. So Tom DeBee, you met earlier during the interview process. So I'm the chair of the board. I am an accounting director for CU. And so I have that kind of accounting and finance background, and I bring that expertise to the board. I've been on the board for how long, Lauren? We're 4 years now? 3 years? 3 or 4 years? 3 years? 3 years, okay. Yeah, thanks, Lauren. We came on. We're the most senior here. So.
Board. I retired about 8 years ago from the IT industry. Since then, I've been working as a volunteer every day for Boulder County Courts, City of Longmont, small claims courts. And just
Before in our interview, I'm Carrie Snow. I'm not a Colorado native. I'm from New Mexico, and I went to school for undergrad out in California. My husband and I just realized that we were constantly in Colorado, and so we really started out making a move. We took a long time, went to tons of different communities, and there's something about Longmont that we loved. I think it's kind of from an outsider perspective a really amazing community. I just really wanted to get more involved in that. So I like working at the Hour Center here. It's something I'm pretty passionate about, and I wanted to get involved after talking, to a lot of our clients there. in affordable housing issues. And my background is legal. I did about 10 years of litigation. Some of that was contract disputes. A lot of that was construction defect law. And then also premises liability from a defense point of view. So I do have an extensive background with working with insurance companies, not exactly for insurance companies, but still experience with that sort of thing. So yeah, I think that's the highlights. Oh, I'm also new. I've been here for like 6 months, so I'm still learning the ropes. All right.
I'm Heather Daniels. I'm the accounting supervisor. I came on board about 2021. I was with the city before that. Was brought on board to help manage their $75 million disaster recovery contract. And then I moved on to the housing authority. I started in the IT world and moved to accounting in Kansas. But you can't take the city girl out of the city, so I brought my husband and back to Colorado because that's where we're born and raised. So here now and crunching numbers.
My name's Arlene Zortman. I've been on the board for 3 years now, my second term. And I actually grew up in Colorado and couldn't wait to leave after I almost got out of school, and 5 years ago came back. So I spent a lot of time in Salt Lake County working with aging and adult services over 20 plus years, so we dealt with a lot of issues out there. Other than that, I'm vice chair.
I'm Jenna Freedy, Colorado Native. New to the board, 6 months. My husband and I own 25 units of rental property here in town, so a small landlord. My education background is in social work, primarily spent my career in child protection.
I'm Harold Dominguez, so I'm the city manager and the executive director, interim executive director. It's been how long, Marlene? 3 years. Molly and I have been. So some background, I'm the classic Texan that has moved to Colorado. So undergrad and grad work at Texas Tech. I was a city manager in San Angelo, Texas for 9 years prior to moving here. Some background on the organization. Actually, I didn't have a chance to do this with you all, I think, at a certain point, so I'll just do it for everyone. About 3 years ago, was it 3 years ago? The Longmont Housing Authority Board approached the city based on issues that they were having with their organization. And so basically what we saw coming into it originally was that financially they were having some issues in terms of solvency. They were having significant issues in terms of staffing, not appropriate staffing different locations. And so the board originally started out asking us to step in and help while the executive director was still here. The executive director took a job in the Northeast. And in evaluating that, what we really found was that between the executive director position and the chief financial officer, that they were probably paying somewhere in the neighborhood of $300,000 a year, which was really constricting operationally what could happen. So the city stepped in and we began just, I think looking back on it, I would say we were at the top end of a death spiral, and we got really engaged in some drastic actions. And so we stepped in, and our first step going into this was immediately trying to stabilize the system and figure out how we could restructure the financials in order to actually put resources into the area where it mattered most, and that's the direct facing service side of it. So we stepped in, and there was a group of about 5 of us that were originally involved in working. So it was myself, Karen Rowan, Captain Fedler, and Molly. Kendra was kind of tangentially connected to it, and then a lot of folks in senior services trying to really surround, figure out, supplement. Today, there's 3 of us that are still, I think, on the compensation before they pay the city, so the city can pay us a portion of it. And it's actually the 2 of us, and then Deanne, who's over, Deanne, who's over financials. We have a mixture of city and staff that are supporting the housing authority and direct housing authority staff. Part of that is really the new positions that we were creating. We actually created those positions on the city side. So while Kendra says she's on the housing authority side, she's technically a city employee. We have now contracted with the city for purchasing IT. Basically, their IT system was in failure as well. So now all of the back office functions are really provided by the city, and we do that via IGA. As we were stepping into this, we then shifted to where the city council became the housing authority board. And we kept this board as an advisory board to the city council. And so we continue moving, evaluating where we need to go. We still have, from a property management standpoint and maintenance, those individuals are still technically housing authority employees, but we have folded them in terms of the broader city organization. The reason we actually had to do that is because the housing authority is on ERA. And when we looked at the options of bringing those individuals in as city employees, one, from the employment side, it made more sense for them to stay in ERA because that's a defined benefit plan. The other side of it where it was a problem is to exit out of ERA because they still have people that are retired there. It would have been an exit cost of, we estimated $3 to $4 million, of which the organization couldn't take on. So it's technically split with the employees, but we're really operating out of an umbrella of city policies, procedures as we move forward. So I think in most cases, the subsidy is probably driving from the city to the housing authority because when needed, we tap all of the city resources to deal with issues. So that's a quick high level for you all that I don't think you got before as to kind of why we got here. I will tell you that I think we still encounter issues to this day, probably not as frequent as when we first started this. Those that have been on the board for a while can remember, it seemed like there was a surprise constantly in what we were finding. The surprises are fewer and there are fewer surprises. I think the biggest change that we made is when we stepped into this, when we looked at the financials and the accounting, the audits that we were getting, or that the housing authority that they received typically had 10 to 12 findings. So those from the financial side, when you see that, you're just like, oh crap. We had last year's audits, we had no findings.
Zero financial statement findings.
Zero.
But we had some compliance.
Yeah, and then this year I think it's pretty similar, although we kind of created those on our own, and that we had our own internal contract, which we put some requirements that technically were fully dealt with, but because it was still in the books, our own requirements in the city required quarterly reporting, which didn't make sense when it was already spent. But so financially, I think we're more stable. The findings are really strong. When we talk to HUD, so we've had a lot of conversations with HUD through this process. Move back up a little bit. What probably started this is we had some issues related to reasonable accommodations and some. This was in the pre-housing authority. Reasonable accommodations, some issues related to some fair housing items that came up. HUD came in and basically required the housing authority at the time to enter into a voluntary compliance agreement. The city did broker that deal between the housing authority. Kathy and I did that between the housing authority and HUD. So that kind of started the ball rolling. We're now complete. We've completed the voluntary compliance agreement with HUD. In talking to HUD, basically they indicated that they were going to actually approach the city to step in. But then when they saw it happening naturally, they just didn't. But we did not know that was actually in play. And so as all of that goes, even our HUD reports have dramatically changed. These units actually, when we went through the process, had any number of findings the last few times. We've gotten really good reports. Basically, the last one when we did the audit debrief, we got what, satisfactory?
Yes, they wanted to give above average.
They wanted to give above average, but they couldn't do that because it would have brought in the HUD office out of DC, because you don't go from a point of failure to above average. They don't see that often. So they hit it satisfactory, and so we hope we continue moving. So fairly significant changes in terms of development. What was happening is the financial system was predicated on development, and the housing authority wasn't developing. And they were doing a lot of self-financing, really developing within the structure, which didn't work. So we are now, and this will be in the report, we partnered with Chrisman on a project that's under construction, Elements under construction, and then we have a couple that we're going to submit. All of those are really designed in a public-private partnership versus self-funding on the housing authority side. And what we're doing is negotiating different management agreements in terms of how we step in. And all of that's really designed to build the operational revenues so that we can continue to become more self-sufficient. And maybe, I would probably estimate we've got another 5 years before we can step into self-development. But even then, not sure that's the best thing to do, because what we're finding is if we leverage the dollars appropriately, you can actually build more units in a public-private model than you can in self-development. And when we look at our comparison housing authorities, I think we are, I mean, the volume of what we're starting to produce, it's different when you do that public-private market model. So, quick update for everyone.
So I'm Molly O'Donnell. I'm the housing director for the city, of which LHA is housed. So that's the easiest way to describe how that all fits together. But in our divisions on the LHA side, we have accounting, and then the voucher program, and then the property management side. And so on the city side, we have our city inclusionary housing programs and affordable housing fund, and moving into attainable housing fund. So there's everything housing all sitting together, and LHA and the city really being under one roof really does help all of that function really efficiently. So I came just shortly after Kendra, came to work on flood recovery, and that was my first dip into housing about 7.5 years ago, and worked on that and infrastructure along with it. And so just gradually kind of kept falling further into housing, and here we are. So I think that's it. Go ahead, Lisa.
Lisa Gallner, I'm the regional manager.
I skipped Lauren and Sarah. We should probably go out of order. Sorry, Lisa.
Sarah?
Sarah may have right now.
Hi everyone, sorry I have to join you virtually today. Sarah Arby, worked with Longmont Police Department for 16 years now. I'm a neighborhood resource officer, and as Harold was describing before, some of the non changes to LHA itself, staff brought me on board beginning of the year to assist with resident issues, public safety matters, the list goes on. I think we've definitely made some pathways to moving forward with a lot of the issues that we were seeing prior to being more involved. So, what else do I have for you? That's about it. I can talk more, but I'll pass the torch.
Go ahead, Lauren.
Hey everybody, sorry I'm not there today. My daughter has climbing camp in Boulder, so I'm officing in Boulder this week. My name's Lauren Sully. I'm a senior housing developer with Boulder County Housing Authority. I used to live in Longmont, and that's kind of how I ended up on this board. I don't live there anymore, but I office out of Longmont, and I'm really involved in the Longmont community. Even though I live in Louisville now, I still consider Longmont like my people. I like Longmont better. But we moved so that my daughter could go to a bilingual school. I am involved on the housing side as a developer. BCHA is the housing authority for the entire county for those areas that are not properties in Longmont, however. And we're trying to, work together and leverage information. And I think housing authorities have tended to have a little bit of an adversarial, territorial perception in past times, where now we're thinking a lot more regionally, and we're all facing the same issues and the same scarce resources. So trying to work together. And so I'm just here to keep that relationship going, and I like to be part of all the action on the development side. I'm really excited to hear that our new member is a banker and knows the LIHTC side, because the financial capital stacks on these deals can get real dicey and real confusing. So I'm really excited to hear about that, and I'm glad that Arlene will be staying, and I'm sad to hear about Jean. And I hope, is Jean there today, or she's not there? She's technically not on the board anymore. She's not there. Okay, I'll have to come by and sign that card then this week. So yeah, so welcome everybody who's new, and can't wait to see you next month in person.
Thanks, Lauren. All right, Lisa. Sorry. Picking back up.
Lisa Gallner, Regional Manager for Longmont Housing Authority. I oversee daily operations for the 9 communities we have and the 2 commercial communities. I work on the inclusionary housing. I do compliance for 2 properties that are not LHA owned. And I'm very busy.
My name is Erica Mars. I am the Executive Assistant for the City Manager's Office, and therefore assist with the LHA Advisory Board. So you will be receiving everything in regards to the LHA Advisory Board from myself, or if you have any questions, you can direct me. I can contact Harold or Molly or anybody from the LHA staff.
So in terms of kind of intro to LHA, Erica, you may or may not have already done this, but we should share the goals document and the 2022 accomplishments one. So we wrote, the LHA board wrote up some goals that they have for the organization. This was in early 2021. And then we presented at the beginning of 2023, kind of a 2022 end of year. This is what we accomplished on those goals. This is what we want to focus on 2023. So that'll be really good grounding material. And then I'm blanking. I feel like there was something else that we had provided when the other new members came on.
Sheet,
Okay.
And the org chart,
Yep.
and contacts.
Perfect. Thank you. So Erica will send those. And you can, if you have any questions, just reach out. Or we can add stuff to the agenda next month if we need to.
Just absorb as much as you can. Ask questions, and some of us are clear.
No stupid questions, we say.
All right, let's jump on to number 5, development and project updates.
So I'm gonna kick this off. You're gonna see a couple of things in our item 6, so I'm gonna skip Hover and the 615 main building. But for Village Place, which is now called Village on Main, and it will come with a new sign once we have construction underway, but we have officially been awarded tax credits for the re-syndication, and we are gearing up our relocation team right now to start resident meetings, start preparing. We plan to close on the financing in December and construct in January. And so right now we're sorting out really what the relocation schedule looks like, really what the construction schedule is going to be nailed down to. It's going to be somewhere between 7 to 10 months. Our contractor says 7, we want to plan for 10 and not push out. We'd rather push up. So that's all in the works right now. So Village Place, I should start at the beginning. Sorry, I'm just jumping right in. 72 units of senior housing right there on 6th and Kaufman in downtown. It was built in 1990. It had a minor rehab of just critical elements in 2005 when the Housing Authority bought it. And so it didn't really have anything cosmetic or, anything regarding cabinets or the exterior or anything like that done since 1990. So it's the big pink building, if you know what that is. It looks very much 1990. So we started the re-syndication process in the end of 2021. We've got all of our team is fully in place with consultants and development partners and investor. It'll be RBC, will be our investor. They've worked with us on a couple of projects now. We've got a good relationship with them. And then, actually, it's A&B Bank. Yep. So that's your bank is going to be the financer on that for construction. So we're just rolling right along. We've got designs at a really good level. We're starting to talk to the city about permits and really getting to the nitty-gritty of construction. So when we start having the resident meetings that go over like the relocation schedule and really showing some of those finishes, we'll invite you all. Just if you're able, you can attend and listen in and see what the proposals all look like. But we're moving right along. Stop me if you have any questions, or else I'm just going to dive into the next. Zinnia, that is our 55 units of permanent supportive housing that's going in next door to the Suites in Southwest Longmont. The Suites is also permanent supportive housing, if you're familiar. That we closed, construction started in the very end of May. We are in heavy construction mode because right now they are doing, they've hopefully already done with demo. They've been demolishing the existing parking lot that the building's going to be on, so it was a lot of hauling and noise. So we've been working with the residents to make sure that is managed because that is a definite nuisance. But pretty soon they're going to be doing the utility work soon, and then they'll be going vertical. So it'll be pretty heavy construction for a bit. We are trying to do what we can to make life easier for those residents. The gazebo has to be taken down temporarily and then moved to accommodate the utilities. And that gazebo is really heavily used by residents. So we're going to create a temporary tent in the back and make sure we have earplugs and anything we can to try and make life a little easier here and there. We've been doing a lot of communication and trying to do some happy events to make sure they still have opportunities to enjoy life through the construction phase. As of the last June 30th, we officially, the city bought from, the City Affordable Housing Fund bought from the City Storm Drainage Fund the remnant parcel where the Royal Mobile Home Park used to be before the flood. So it's come full circle. It was naturally occurring affordable housing, destroyed in the flood. The work around the river was completed in that area. Once the work is complete up to Hover, which is in progress, then that whole area will be out of the mapped floodplain and much more protected. So the remnant parcel could come back to affordable housing. So we did use ARPA funding to purchase that and get it basically land banked for future affordable rentals. The idea would be to do some sort of transit-oriented development since the new transit station is proposed there, rentals, and use our height, hopefully, use our opportunities for height on the building at that point. We're just gonna hold for a bit because we've got a heavy plate and there's a lot of redevelopment work happening around that transit station, so it's kind of makes some sense to hold and just see what comes out of that and if there's opportunities that come with that. But it is certainly slated for affordable housing. So that is officially come full circle, just 2 months shy of the 10-year anniversary of the flood. So that's exciting. We're going to be talking on July 19th with the LHDC, the Housing Development Corporation, about the status of moving their assets over to the Housing Authority. So they have a desire to dissolve. We've been working now for about 1.5 years to look at all of their assets and come up with a plan for what to do there. And so Village Place is getting taken care of with the re-syndication. They had this plot of land right over here behind us, was purchased by LHDC a while back, and that has officially been bought by LHA. So 2 properties are taken care of there. The remaining properties are Hearthstone and Lodge, which these are HUD 202 program projects. And so there's a separate process to try and exit that 202 program and put them into our typical project portfolio. That, in talking with HUD, is a 2024 project. We have to time it very specifically with the budget, which their budgets are in the July-August timeframe. So it's cutting it too close for this year, but that is something that we want to accomplish for 2024. It does come with, there's an opportunity for rehab, and so we gotta look at what that might look like and what we wanna do there. So that's in progress. And then there are 3 other properties we're gonna be talking to the LHDC about on July 19th. Spring Creek, Fall River, and Chrisman 1. So Spring Creek, Fall River, LHA self-developed. The Chrisman project was the first go at doing a public-private partnership. And so the LHA gets to assume ownership in approximately 2028. But LHDC is on the ownership structure, so we have to exit them off in order to do what the LHDC wants to do. What we're finding is that there are some bumps in the road with that idea, because for those 3 properties, there is unrelated party debt issues that we have to work through, and we don't have, other than LHDC, we don't have a clear way to move forward to move LHDC off and put someone else on. We have to have another unrelated party holding 21% of that debt. And so we are going to talk to the LHDC about what they'd like to do in that instance. So just letting this group know. For the residents of Spring Creek, this means nothing on the ground. It's all a paper exercise in ownership and transferring debt responsibility and that type of thing. So those things are coming up, and we'll be getting some direction from LHDC at that time. Lots of work, lots of legal and finance work on these. And then finally, I just wanted to mention, since we've, the Veterans Community Project's interest in purchasing the commercial property at 1228 Main, that was the former LHA central office. We're still working through that. They're looking for funding sources and raising capital, but really we're, 615 Main is going to be the first one out the gate, so we're just focusing on this. Any questions on those, or do you want to add anything?
Any updates on Chrisman 2 at all? Or
Yeah, Chrisman 2, so they're breaking ground on building 3 and 4. They've made it through their building permit process enough to get there. They're still waiting on some complications with Excel. It's very, very slow. But if you've driven by recently, they've painted the first 2 buildings and they look awesome. And so we're still targeting lease up and construction completion towards the end of the year. It might be more like January, but I see them out there working on the weekends, so I think they're trying to hustle. So we'll have 84 units ready for lease up. The LHA is not managing that property yet, not until about 2028 when we take over the ownership, because this is a developer that is interested in developing the project, collecting the minimum developer fee, getting a stabilized property, and then transferring it off. That's kind of their operational model. And so we've negotiated with them that LHA will take over in 2028. So that'll be Chrisman 1, 120 units plus 84 Chrisman 2 that LHA would assume.
It's Chrisman 1 that's creating an issue with the LHDC based on the way that, so if you look at themes, Spring Creek, Fall River, Chrisman 1, the way that LHA and LHDC finance those actually is creating a hitch in terms of the transfer. Chrisman 2, not so much, because
it's all
we did it in a different way.
So this is the nitty gritty. So we're happy to be, if you want more information, spend some more time on one-on-one.
Let's jump on to number 6. Items from the LHA Board of Commissioners. Item 1 is the sale of 615 Main Street commercial property and MOU with CWD for living services.
Okay. So 615 Main is located there next to Village Place, and the CPWD, the Center for People with Disabilities, has rented that for years and years. They've been interested in purchasing, and now that we're going through the re-syndication process for Village Place, we made sure that, because that commercial property was associated in some way with the original tax credit syndication, but we worked it through with Chaffa, and there's nothing really tying the two properties together. So we are planning on selling it, and CPWD is interested in buying. So we did a market analysis, and our appraiser gave the approximate market value at about $642,000 for that property. And so we've been working with CPWD to see if they would be able to meet that price. And we negotiated with them a reduced purchase price in exchange for services. So what you have here in your packet is that MOU that outlines the services. So in exchange for about $142,000 discount on the sales price, they would, if you're looking at your MOU, page 6, section 11, providing independent living and skills training classes at our LHA properties, making sure that we have a kind of a minimum target number of events that they would hold, and then doing targeted outreach to our residents to see if they would like to take part in their services. So basically, they have a really cool model where for people with disabilities of any sort, you have to meet 2 criteria. You have to have a disability, or perceive yourself to have a disability, and then you just have to be willing to shoot for living independently. Meaning, they're not going to do everything, the assistance for you. They're going to give you the tools for you to be able to do it yourself and operate on your own as an independent person living with a disability. So they'll help with Social Security paperwork, they'll help with referrals to services, they'll help with job placements. They just have a cool model there. So you'll see on here, we really, because we have so many senior properties, so I would say it's 7 of our 9 properties are focused on seniors. And the city's new housing needs assessment that's getting finalized right now is showing that as our population ages, this is no surprise, but as our population ages, the residents with disabilities raises each year as well. And so with just with that information, knowing that we can see this into the future and there's a need out there, our residents have that specific need, we are seeing, especially with the lack of affordable assisted living, we're seeing people trying to live independently that maybe do need more supports or maybe should be in assisted living if they could find a place. This is an attempt to help alleviate that and really provide an opportunity for our residents to live better lives. So the purchase and sale agreement itself is not attached, so we're still finalizing that now, but these 2 documents would go together to the LHA board next Tuesday. And then we'd work on closing with CPWD by the end of August. Yes.
How long is this?
5 years. 5 years.
142,000 covers 5 years.
20,000.
So, Molly, in the services that they're going to provide, are they currently providing those services? And if they are, how are they different from anything senior services provides?
So they are available for anyone out there, but that means that somebody would have to come to them to engage the services unless senior services referred them or they had other assistance. But this is really trying to instead have our people go to them, have them come to our people. Offering the classes and workshops on site at our properties, doing targeted engagement, really trying up the participation.
Yeah, going back to the challenge that we're seeing, Molly mentioned the lack of affordable assisted living. I think one of the biggest issues we deal with on a regular basis is individuals that need to be in assisted living or have some sort of support services, but just can't. And what we're seeing, to Arlene's question about senior services, that's not really their skill set in terms of, they'll do some referring, but in terms of, the on-site training to really live independently, that's not something that we do with regard to people with disabilities. And so when we look at this and we really combine it with the voluntary compliance agreement that we had to go through reasonable accommodation issues, they're going to help facilitate that. to really work with these individuals. And to Tom's point, we try to value this in a reasonable way to say, here's how long we're going to do it. We felt the value of 28 a year made sense. Obviously, we're going to be able to watch, how effective this is. And it may get to the point when we get year 4, if it really is working, we're going to start looking at how we figure out the budget to maybe continue the service. But the big piece is bringing them to the side, because what we're finding is a lot of people are reluctant to go out. But if we find when we bring things in, then we do get more traction.
So what would you use to, or should you thinking about using to evaluate, after 1 year, 5 years, whatever, how well people are accessing these services and, how much, I guess, value, they're really creating?
Yeah, I think we have to build the metrics to really evaluate it. But, first, the one thing you'll want to measure is how many people are actively participating versus how many people are participating now, which is, next to 0. I think we will then want to evaluate the impact on the property based on the individual in terms of what does that really mean from contacts with management, contacts with other agencies. And so we have to kind of work through that a little bit. But high level, those are probably the 2 that I'm going to want to key on. And so in year 1, you hope to see a fairly significant increase in individuals working with them. Year 2, you're going to want to figure out how is that working out, and then we're going to continue to refine the metrics as we learn more through the process.
Given the fact that we don't have it, why did we decide we needed it?
The biggest issue we're facing right now is individuals who really need to be in assisted living, but because of the lack of affordable housing in this area, what we're finding is individuals that need assisted living are moving to affordable independent living. And, I can tell you probably 10 or 15 cases where it's turned into a significant issue. And in some cases, because of the way fair housing laws and all of that works, we can't necessarily engage in those conversations. And having a group that can engage and really work with folks and find resources is really valuable, because we get caught in some really strange positions where, for us, we may know they need this assistance, but we have to look at it with the lens of fair housing. And unfortunately, at times, it's led to evictions. And it's not a place we want to be in. And so it's an added resource to help us balance the system.
So with that $500,000, is that going to be earmarked for anything in particular, or is it money to be put in the bank in order to maybe purchase a development in the future?
We haven't completely decided, but it would go into the LHA general fund initially, and then through our budget process, we'd figure out what to do. We know that we need, most likely, some of it would help cover admin overages, but we haven't sat down and figured out all the
So I know it's a process of working out a forecast, what we have today, what we need for admin, what's our gap, what we would be getting from management fees, what's coming in from developer fees, and to kind of get a gauge of like how long is this money that we have gonna last.
Well, the one thing that we think we may need it on is pre-purchasing. We talked to you all about the snow removal piece and the cost, and working with the city's fleet department to get snow removal equipment. We may need some of that to pre-purchase it so that we can then charge back to the property, because you have to charge to each individual property, and pre-purchasing is a problem. That may not be an issue because we know we have one truck and one plow and a sander that we're, but the other truck and plow that we had on the books to get from them may get delayed because on the city side, the manufacturers canceled an order of 35 trucks, and we were relying on that to do the switch. So we may need some for that. And when we talk about the forecasting piece, is we've got to forecast what the gap is going to, what we think the gap's going to look like. We've got to bring the other revenue streams that will start falling in terms of the management agreement with Element, what it's going to look like with the projects, what gets funded in LIHTC, so that we can start layering that in, because we need some of that to help bridge the gap between these other projects coming on. And then obviously, the old admin office or BCP will be another component that'll come in. And then hopefully between the two, we can really get a decent fund balance that's truly there for emergencies.
We're gonna be selling the whole variety of properties, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so it's all one package. Yeah. Right, okay. And then, so the forecast, is that going out 5 years? Or how far are we going out? Is that?
I'm probably gonna do 5 to 10. I think 10 is probably a better, and it'll really probably all depend on what my developer fees. You know, if I have developer fees that are scheduled out to 10, I'll forecast it. Yeah.
Just a couple of years. Okay.
So on that note, we have been trying to, making the decisions like holding on Royal, just land banking for now. What we have coming up, we've got Chrisman 2 will lease up in 2024. Zinnia will lease up mid-2024. The Hover project, if it's successful at tax awards, will lease up 2025. And then we have Chrisman in 2028, so that's why that 2026, 2027, we've got some stuff to fill in there. And then looking beyond from there. So we're really trying to time it out so we have a good forecast of developments coming on and what the fees will be in it.
So part of it is, Longmont's going to have 2 tax credit applications coming in. One Hover, the other is 350 Atwood.
Mm-hmm.
On that one, that's one from the city side where we actually negotiated the LHA to be the property manager. And so again, it's the revenue generation and the administrative fees that you can get on top of that. You all probably have heard, and next week we'll talk about it, but when we look at the potential ballot initiatives, and we talked about Centennial in terms of the partnership with the Y, where if council chooses to put it on, it's up to a $12 million allocation. The Y will create an ice rink and a swimming pool at the Centennial location and 100 units of affordable housing. That's another case where we negotiated, well, if we're going to do this, then LHA gets the management of that. And again, it's just trying to build the administrative revenues and the management fees coming in to, again, bolster the financials.
So depending on tax credit awards for all of these, the next 5 years looks very busy.
That 350 Atwood, is that the SLP that we talked about last month?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we're going to talk about it again.
An update on that.
We've got I will, because that's coming back up for their next agenda item, so.
Awesome.
I will certainly.
Is there a resale restriction that CPWD has as far as if they were to sell the property within a certain period of time?
Well, I don't have a purchase and sale agreement here, but let me make a note to double check on that. It's undergoing legal review, so we still have opportunities to catch stuff.
Just a big deal, you don't want to turn around and sell it.
Well,
Right,
yeah,
I mean,
and from just
not
a
in 5
publicity
years.
standpoint, right? Okay, we sold it for 500 with this other agreement, and now they're selling it for $1.2 million.
Yep.
Right.
They did say that this is their most popular place, and that's why they wanted to purchase it.
Yeah.
But
They
Yeah,
want
they're
to
probably
stay. Yeah. At the moment, they want to stay, but it's going to be it's a good investment property, certainly. Okay, that was everything. Well, we kind of went off, but that was 6:15 maybe.
So then, let's go to B, award of project-based vouchers.
Okay, so quickly to give an update on Atwood, because, I'm sorry, I should back up. We have authority to award up to 26 project-based vouchers in our HUD 2-year tool, because just as the miniature version, we have a certain number of vouchers that we're allowed to administer. A certain percentage of those can be project-based vouchers. Very desirable for developers. They're guaranteed income, basically. It's super competitive if they're available. And so we have the authority to issue up to 26. 8 of those we have held off because Chrisman 2 may need them. We're determining that with them right now because we did write into our agreements with them, our developer agreements back in 2021 and 2022, that if there were 8 available, that they might be, that we could award them to them. So we're going through that exercise. So we just held them off out of the 26 just in case. Then we put out a competitive RFP for the remaining 18. So when the housing authority has the authority to issue project-based vouchers to its own properties, but it needs to go out with a couple of exceptions. It needs to go out for a competitive RFP process because private developers of affordable housing can also apply for those and could be awarded them. So when the housing authority is applying for its own project-based vouchers, then you have to bring in a separate reviewer. And throughout history, that has been the city. So we kept internally the city's housing group totally separate from this process, and they are our independent reviewers of the project-based voucher applications. So we received 2 applications, remember, out of 18 total vouchers. The LHA Hover project applied for 18, and the Atwood project applied for 8. So those 2 projects, recap. Atwood is 72 units located there on 3rd and Atwood, so just east of the Civic Center. They are planning on 1 and 2 bedroom units, and it was originally a market rate deal. Then they brought on a LIHTC partner to try and go for LIHTCs. So it's an experienced LIHTC developer from elsewhere. They haven't worked in this area before. Then the Hover project, and to give the update for Lauren, the board did approve an SLP with them. We left it vague, and we just said at the time that they are awarded credits, then we would process an SLP in accordance with the policy at the time. Because recall, it's an income averaging project. That's our new wave of the future for tax credits, where you get more 70 and 80% units in order to up your really low units, low AMI units. So that was playing with our property tax exemption policy pretty in an interesting way because we wrote it to be traditionally 60% and below. So in time, we will address our property tax exemption policy and let the board decide if they're going to apply that to the whole development or not. So that is coming. I was trying to get it on for the July meeting, but it's going to be in August, just FYI. So we just built in flexibility. So yes, they are approved for an SLP, the terms of which are to be decided upon tax credit award. Hover will do the same, by the way. So that's a further agenda item, but it's going to be the same thing. SLP subject to the terms of the policy in effect at the time. And so Atwood, yes, LHA is involved because they intend to have us property manage, but we wouldn't be in the ownership structure. Hover, we property manage, and we're in the ownership structure. So Hover's project, which we're going to go over the concept here in a moment, but just it's the basics to compare the 2 projects. 75 units, also income averaging, and primarily serving larger families. So we've got 3 and 4 bedroom units, which is really hard to get. And it has an early childhood education center that's planned to be attached, etc. So when we wrote the RFP, we were using our preliminary data from our housing needs assessment showing that we really have, and our wait list at the Aspen Meadows neighborhood, our only true family property with 3 bedroom units, that we have a severe lack of supply of larger units to support larger families or intergenerational families. And so when we wrote our PBV, that was our primary target audience for the projects that would come in. And so we have a point system, and 20 points are awarded to those that meet the intent of the RFP for the types of units that we're trying to get in the community. So we have not yet finalized the selection that would be recommended to the board for approval next Tuesday, but generally we have three options. We could award all 18 to Homer, award a split, some level of split, 10 and 8 or whatever, that would fully satisfy one and partially satisfy the other. Or we could, because both projects are submitting for tax credits by August 1st, the chances of both of them getting awarded is so low that we could say both are conditionally approved for their request, subject to tax credit award, and let CHAFA decide. There's a chance neither of them get awarded. The chances are greater that either neither of them get awarded or one of them gets awarded. The chances of both of them, CHAFA is oversubscribed by 3.5 to 1 on this round, so very low. We could build in flexibility and also then maintain, we're letting CHAFA decide. It's not really, there's a little more independence in there. In the very small chance that they both get awarded, then that's a problem. But we also have the 8, the numbers happen to be very coincidentally 8 and 10. We have the Chrisman 8, that in that amount of time we would also determine if those are needed or not, and we could have some flexibility come November if they're both awarded. So that's where we are. The LHA board would decide on this, but staff is going to put together a recommendation between now and Friday. And so I thought we would just lay it out and let your input come forward if you have a recommendation for the board. I know that you haven't seen any of this because literally we just got it. So I'm just going off of kind of the high level of what each project is bringing forth. And also the evaluation criteria is still in the city. I have it here, but it's still that city independent review. So it's not available for this meeting. But if you have any recommendations or concepts to consider, I'm going to open that up to this group.
So if we give CHAFA the ability to make a decision and then decide not to go with either one of the two properties, we still have the 26 vouchers, right? We don't lose that. Okay.
We do not lose it. CHAFA wouldn't be making the decision on the vouchers. They would make the decision on the tax credit award, and then we would come back and say, okay, then this of the two projects, this one will get them. If neither of them are awarded, most likely, well, we'll have to see what happens. But we are hearing that for the Atwood project, if they're not awarded tax credits, they might, because it's designed, it's almost permitted, it's really ready to go. They might try and relook at the model and go back to market rate. Of course, that's up to that development team, and that could go a different way, but that's what we're hearing. So that in that way, the decision may be decided as well. So yes, but whether that if they want to stay with LIHTC, then we'd have to make a call at that point too, because one of the two would want the commitment.
So, but at the end of flexibility.
Okay. Sorry. No, that's fine.
If they don't both get it and they plan to reissue, do you have to do another RFP? Is the RFP still?
It's still good. Because we didn't make a call on it. And also, by then, we might be running our 2-year tool again and see if we have more capacity. We'll see. That might be something that comes out there. I mean, you're the person that would tell us, but
it will only be if HUD gives us more vouchers.
Right. So right. But by November, maybe we have more information and could award it a little differently.
So these 20 vouchers come out of our total vouchers, right? Mm-hmm. So these are just allocated directly to these projects.
Yeah, and they would come up as somebody leaves. So
Yeah.
if we're already fully at capacity,
Right.
if somebody leaves the program, then that would switch from a HCD to a PB to make our percentage.
So it's kind of an attrition process over time. And by the time these are loosening up in mid-2025, then they should be set to go.
Can you talk just a little bit about what HUD's process is for their allocation and what it looks like timelines and kind of at a very, I know, I'm sure it's very complicated, but at a high level what
we could have a whole day on voucher administration. Kendra, do you want to give the short version
Yeah,
of
so
the tool?
it's 20%, right, for PDDs. So our total count is like 513 or 518, I think. So you can have 20% of that count be PDD vouchers. But you also get a budget. So even though you can go up to 519 based on the rents in the area, you have to maintain the budget as well. That's why they give you this 2-year tool, so you can start managing and forecasting out 2 years to say, I'm at 408 right now, how much is each unit? Like, what's the average of each unit? And then you kind of gauge that. And you gotta be spending, so they give you so much, and then they also give you this reserves. And you gotta be tapping into your reserves, which LHA was never doing. So, which was a concern. We are now at max capacity, tapping into our reserves, and HUD gave us kudos for that because they haven't done that in a long time. But it's all fluctuation. So they also just awarded us additional money because they saw that fluctuation happening in the market. So they gave us more money, but they did not increase our vouchers. Because basically it was kind of a tool to help house more individuals. Because it's really hard in Longmont because the rent is so high. And we still can only go to the fair market rent. So if our fair market rent for a 1-bedroom is $1,200 and this landlord is $15, that individual has to make up that $300, and they may not be able to make that up. So you can also, and we are currently at 105% of fair market, you can go out to HUD and say, based on our area, we need to go up and increase that. Right now we're at 105% in Boulder County, and they went up to 110 because they're seeing the increase in their area. We're not yet, and so we wanted to make sure we could issue more vouchers to individuals. If we start seeing that fluctuation, we have to do the same thing.
This was another one of those problems that we saw, and I don't know if the new folks have really talked in depth about it. So the Longmont Housing Authority was pretty stagnant in terms of the money that was coming in for vouchers because they were never hitting the max and dipping into reserves. And that's what HUD uses to give you more money, give you more vouchers. And so we had issues, similar, I think, in how they were administered and things like that. So part of the process we've been through is really the recovery of that to the point where now that Kendra and the property managers and everything are really hitting that point where HUD's like, oh, wow, we've never seen this, and they dump more money in. That's a really good sign. And then hopefully as we continue doing this, then we'll see more money coming in, increasing the number of vouchers. All that being said, when we look at the housing needs analysis that we're going to be talking to the council about, and we will probably bring that back to let you all see it as well. And then you combine it with the vouchers and you look at naturally occurring affordable housing. We're seeing some collision points that are coming in that we're going to want to talk through a little bit more. Because we are seeing in terms of the press on the voucher side that when, there's an agreement that we have an agreement in play that in Boulder County, we don't necessarily report in, report out. What we're seeing is in terms of the naturally occurring affordable is that a lot of agencies have a significant amount of vouchers that are actually being used in Longmont, which is interesting in that it's creating a different pressure on the Longmont Housing Authority. And so that's probably going to be a higher level policy conversation that I'm going to get into actually with my cohorts in administrative roles, and I would assume that the city council and in their dual role will probably start driving into this conversation based on what we've heard from them too. So that's all embedded in this broader housing needs analysis and what we're seeing, because not to get too far off track, but that's now creating an issue for us and how we come into Prop 123 and what that means. And so there's a lot of untangling that we have to go through.
Whole day discussion on vouchers.
Whole day.
And every year, they do sometimes release additional money that you have to apply for. So we pay attention to those emails that come in and what other vouchers are being offered to see if our community can take those vouchers in and actually house people.
So from a timeline perspective though, I think you said Christmas is 2026. Like now is the appropriate time to earmark date for them.
Yes, because it takes time to attrition them off of, as people exit the housing choice voucher program.
And that's a slightly different conversation because, I mean, where we're gonna have to dig into this is need.
Yeah.
Because when we look at the pro forma for the Crispin project, it actually was designed to not need the vouchers. And so they may want them because it may create certainty in their world, but if the pro forma indicates that they don't need them, you know, that's gonna be a different question that we have to go through, and that's what we're trying to assess right now.
Ideally, we would have been able to make that call before they're coming out with this, but these projects need to know what the commitment might be for their August 1st tax credit submittal. So we're just gonna make do and make the best recommendation we can, and then sort it out as we get all the pieces together. So
Do they have to have it before they submit their tax?
they have to, so these two projects do because they have gaps without it. So they have to show that they filled their gaps. Crispin filled their gap otherwise.
So with the 26 PBVs, does that get us into that 20% that you said would allow? Are we gonna max them?
Yeah, we're actually, so we actually have more PBVs because of the suites.
Okay.
And the suites, when you look at supportive housing, it kind of is excluded from the count. So we went out to HUD when Kathy was here to say, are we reading this correctly? Are the suites excluded? We can up our percentage. So if you looked at it as a whole, we would be over the 20%, but you have to exclude the suites.
So we have other PPVs at other properties.
So that's why then Zinnia,
Zinnia has their own.
that will be excluded then as well.
Correct.
Okay. All right.
So right now they're sprinkled across the other properties, the ones that we currently have.
And we have got Fall River, Osprey Meadows neighborhood, and Crispin one.
And there will be some at Village Place once that's reciprocated.
And there's some at Brotherwood and Aspen Meadow neighborhood. Yeah, it's just
At the neighborhood, I forgot where
I mean, the way I see it is, you know, I want more affordable housing. So if there is a deficiency and if we can provide these BBDs and allow them to provide affordable housing to the community, that would be the way to go. I don't want them obviously pulling it. So if Atwood is at risk, I mean, and I would see maybe provide some PBDs just to get them over the hump in order to provide the affordable housing. That would be my 2 cents on that. Just don't want them to pull it. I do.
Did they say what they wanted to apply the PDDs for? Like what
Yes.
unit types?
Yes. So first of all, there's a big philosophical conversation that's part of our full day on PPVs. So in instances like Crispin or Village Place, something that's already either funded or existing building, applying your PBVs on like a 50 or 60% unit means that you still are guaranteed to, have that rent income. 50s and 60s are also really hard to fill, especially at senior properties. And so in that way, you can bring in a very low income person, but you're still getting the 50 to 60% rents.
Right.
So that is a benefit. When you're flip siding it and you're starting a project and you have to fund gaps from day one, applying them to 30% makes the pro forma work because the 30% generate so little rent.
You're gonna gain and lose based on the voucher.
Right. So but if you're looking at it one way or the other, it makes more sense. So the Hover project, because the 3 and 4 bedrooms are such a hit to the pro forma, it's really hard to finance them. They are proposing all 18 on their 30% units. And then if they get additional gap funding, they're proposing to increase the affordability, bring in more lower income units. Atwood they're proposing to scatter them across their 30s and 60s. So it's kind of playing to both worlds, which is beneficial. But basically, Atwood, if they weren't awarded, Deb asked a specific question. If you weren't awarded these PPVs, what would you do? Is your project dead, or what would you do? And Atwood said they'd seek additional sources. Hover said we're dead because 3 and 4 bedrooms are so hard on the pro forma. So, and there's theory to that too. I mean, are you only relying on your PPVs? Are you doing everything you can to get every other source? Or is it, but there's two, that's the only thing that's significantly different between these two projects is 1 and 2 bedrooms are much easier to finance than 3 and 4 bedrooms. So.
And 3 and 4 is the highest need. And so you have to measure need in this equation where it just really starts getting lined up to a certain point. And the reason that 1 and 2 are easy, so if you figure for every 3 or 4, let's say you gain 1.5 1 and 2 bedroom units, it just shifts your pro forma because you're using more real estate for revenue generation. And yeah, that's what we're learning, but it's what we need in our community. It's because we haven't built family housing. And
For a reason.
And that there's a reason, but it's also
Doesn't
the
make sense.
highest need in the community.
So it's tough. But, any other thoughts?
So what do you all think about the concept of saying, both get it, based on the award, that'll sort it out, because I don't think we'll get both.
I like the wait and see approach. Just kind of see, okay, is anybody gonna get it? Then we can go to the other party and say, okay, well, we're gonna provide you with X amount of PPPs at that point.
My only question is, do we think that because the the Atwood project is a lot more complete, would it be more likely to get awarded tax credits versus our Hover deal? Because I think we have more interest in the Hover deal getting tax credits. If we had to choose between the two, we want our deal that we are in the ownership structure to get those. Because I do agree, like it is hard to sit there and say, okay, well, we want both of the projects to work, but only one's going to win. Do we want to stack the deck in favor of the Hover?
So
because we do need, that's our project, and we need more family units.
the two things that each project will probably stress to CHAFA. Atwood would stress its readiness, and Hover would stress the 3 and 4 bedrooms and the early childhood education, really the family-centric nature of the property, which you'll hear more about when we do the concept next. So I think it's going to be, we cannot predict what CHAFA is going to weigh, but that's what we know both projects will try and push to CHAFA as why this project is so worthy. So, I mean, we can't really tell, but
If you only give 10 to Hover, do they still have to?
Yeah.
yes,
Oh, yeah.
that they have to fill in 2 weeks, which is not gonna happen. So, it's tough. Hover. They would look to the city first because we've been their gap filler to date, and we've given a good amount and are pretty tapped out there. They have meetings set up all over the place, primarily for the Early Childhood Education Center, but some of them are funders that are interested in the combination, funding both together. So they've got a preliminary commitment for the Early Childhood Education Center from the Colorado Health Foundation, and then we're talking to the Longmont Community Foundation and was that Gates Foundation, and there's meetings set up left and right, with the intent to fund first the Early Childhood Education Center, because that has to be funded before tax credit if we want the project to go as one complete project. But some of those, like the Colorado Health Foundation, specifically likes the project because it's affordable housing and early childhood together. So maybe it would be some sort of combination. But what they've said is they can't guarantee that by August 1st. They need the PBVs to make the housing complete. And if they end up with more gap funds, they would increase the affordability. So that's the commitment that they could make with the very tight timelines that are approaching.
I have another question for the Atwood piece. Since we have a commitment to enter into an SLP, but we haven't nailed down what that looks like yet, if we were to not award the 8 PBVs, would the SLP, in theory, if we were to do the SLP, give them the tax reduction, would that close their gap? Would that allow them to leverage more debt and close their gap?
I think their gap right now already includes that exemption.
It does.
Both projects already assume the exemption. Now, if they don't get tax credits, then their SLP is void. But yeah, both of them have, I think, looked everywhere they can in traditional sense. And I think Hover is out there seeking gap funding from foundations and doing what they can. Atwood, I think, has solidified their traditional sources, DOH and their tax exemption and going for PBVs.
Well, part of the gap in Atwood, that's actually a good question, Lauren, that I'm thinking about. There is a source of revenue for Atwood because I think that property is technically in the DDA. So some facade improvement grants or things like that could potentially be used to offset some of their cost structures. We'll need to talk to Kimberly on that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's some non-traditional, similar to what we did at the Spoke, where the DDA kind of came in. So there may be some opportunities there. Atwood is an interesting project because it started out as a market rate project. I think based on the type of units that they were wanting to build, they just couldn't get financing approval. So then they shifted to a tax credit project, which is interesting. We're seeing a lot of multifamily, because of interest rates, pull out of market rate projects and try to come in and figure out a tax credit because they just can't make the numbers work with, the current interest rate environment. That tells me that there's probably a little more room in the Atwood pro forma to where they could push it based on the fact that, if you got close to financing a market rate deal and you're shifting to a wild tech, there may be some capacity, but I do think the DDA is an interesting option in terms of the facade and the public improvements. Also speaking to readiness, there are issues that Atwood's going to get into that don't necessarily plague Hover, in the sense that Hover's already, most of the public improvements are already in place for this property versus, they're going to have to be cutting into roads, building sidewalks and things like that. So when you look at a readiness component, their design may be further along, but they're also going to inherently get into more public improvement issues. And, the thing I'm interested in is how they're solving for specifically water quality and stormwater, because that's going to be, and I haven't seen that level of detail in their design, that's going to be harder at the Atwood location than it is at this location, because this location actually has 2 stormwater pods that they move the water into that are part of this overall development. So readiness is a hard one, because while Hover may not have the civil done, a lot of the work has already been done in the development of this area versus they're trying to solve for a different issue, which means they're probably going to need something like a cistern or something to collect that water and then get it out of the system. But I haven't gotten, we tend to stay out of that a little bit, but I think it's it's getting close to where we need to get in and understand it.
This is really not a lot of property right around the Atwood that could be used
Yeah.
for.
It's
you know,
infill.
And it's water.
Yeah, and at the spoke, we had to put in rain gardens, but that was required after we had already got through all of the permitting. So we went back and redesigned that, and so I wonder if that's gonna happen at Atwood, and that added almost $500,000 to our project.
Yeah, the water quality is what gets you in these tight spaces, but there's options. You know, you can build a cistern underground and then it puts it in there and then you can control your flow and your quality. So we're seeing some of those options come out now, but yeah.
And for these SLPs, are you guys only exempting them from the city taxes, or does it also do the county taxes?
All of it.
It's all of it. Yeah.
All of it, okay. Okay.
So, tough call, but if you have any other input, let us know. You can think about it and provide anything you think of later as well. On Tuesday, the 18th.
At 6 o'clock.
Right, 6:15.
Going to item C, Ascent October Crossing Partnership, Concept Design and Tax Credit Submittal. We're at 10:35 as well, so.
Yeah. We're gonna-
just 10 minutes?
Yeah.
at least?
Yep. So, in anticipation of tax credit submittal, August 1st, the design and partnership, tax credit partnership team is ready to show us what they're going to propose to the LHA board on Tuesday night. So what's going to actually go to the board on Tuesday night is a memorandum of understanding, which I'm going to pass around because this was not available at time of packet. This is basically a pre-development agreement between LHA and Penrose, the developer. It's officially non-binding, but Penrose wanted to really go into tax credit knowing that we have the parameters of our partnership, agreed to amongst us, unless situations change with tax credit award, financing, that type of thing, and we need to modify, we still can do that. But this is what we're working off of. You'll see there's still a couple comment bubbles in here. This is undergoing final city legal review. Penrose has accepted what we have here. So I'm going to go through a couple of highlights on that, but really just wanted to go over the concept design. So as you already heard, I'm going to click in this and make it as big as possible. So as you already heard, it's 72 units with a good number of 3 and 4 bedrooms. I actually forgot to pull the unit mix. I was going to share that, but it's something like 20 or so 3 and 4 bedroom units. And then really what it looks like, it's a 3-story walk-up building. So this is family centered. We don't have elevators in it, but it's not geared towards seniors, although anybody of any age, it's not age restricted. Anybody can be there. It's got accessible units on the bottom floor, since there's no elevator. It is intended to look like townhomes, which is more attractive on the marketing side to larger families looking for 3 and 4 bedrooms. I mean, a 3 and 4 bedroom apartment building seems weird. And so there are front access doors to the sidewalk, which would be right here. Sorry. Right here on this side to really make it feel like a walkable neighborhood with townhome looking building, but really in actual constructability, it's one big building. Well, it's actually 2 separate ones, but just massing makes it look like a different style. It's trying to do a prairie style in terms of architectural design. That's the only thing I know about it, but I love prairie style because it's got the big overhangs. And trying to make kind of a mountain theme to modern, but mountain theme to take advantage of the mountain views that will be at the top level. Can you go down to the next one? This is the corner that is going to be the Early Childhood Education Center. So it would have its own street front entrance, and on the back side, which you'll see here shortly, there's the play area in the back. And it's a 2-story ECE planned with 2 classrooms on the bottom and 1 or 2 on the top. There's so many licensing issues that we're working through with the potential service provider, who's Wild Plum, is who we've been talking to thus far. Nothing's agreed to formally, but they're interested and they have a great reputation in the community, and they've worked with the city and some of the foundations a lot, and they offer Head Start programs, and they're just really established in our community already, and they're interested in working with us. So if you can keep going. Here's our Early Childhood Education Center. This is that designated play area on the back. And then this is the first building with units. And this is the second building with units. Sorry, you can't see my finger, Lauren, but I'm sure you're kind of following here. In the middle, this is our property management and central operations elements. And then here is the community gathering space with indoor-outdoor access to a designated play area for the actual residents, because this one has to be controlled for the child care center. Solar panels on top is proposed. We're attempting to go all electric here. This is the play area for the childhood center. No, I think we're on the other side. I think this is the designated playground for the community building. We don't have all the landscaping and everything yet, but you get the idea. Keep going. Here's the layout. So here's our Early Childhood Education Center. These are units, and then there's our gathering space and property management with the play structure and outdoor play space there. Really trying to make it desirable for families, so families can come and use this gathering space. We want to put, a little desk area with some ports for kids to do homework and have tutors come and have indoor-outdoor access to that play structure with hopefully a fireplace in the middle where parents can sit and hang out and kids can play, and just really make sure it's focused on the families.
What's across the street?
So here is Cook, so that's this street right here. So if we were looking at that lot, we'd be looking towards this. So this is this existing sidewalk entrance to Hearthstone and Lodge. So we would have that directly connect so that there is a connection between the 2 properties, just so that they feel like more of a community. And that would go all the way straight down and be able to see through them to see that park play area and the community building. So that would be straight here.
What's your parking count, and how does that compare to some of your other non-senior properties?
So officially, the city allows you to go to 1 parking space per unit for affordable units, regardless of bedroom size. We find at our senior properties that is usually, we're overparked even at that. With our family properties, like Aspen Meadows neighborhood, we know we do have more cars on site, but what we have at this site is street parking on all 4 sides is an option as well. So we've got parking inside and then parking all around.
And that gets you to 72?
Yes, it does. I think I can't recall if they're specifically relying on the street parking, or I think they do. So
Yeah, part of it from a land development perspective, when we look at our new code, we actually have, instead of parking minimums, we have parking maximums that are allowed. So it's a more urban-based code that we're utilizing, and really trying to also rely on on-street parking so we can increase density. And that's just including what's adjacent. That's not including both sides of the street, which there's some additional capacity, especially on Cook, I think, on both sides. So I think the planning department is indicating it's not an issue.
So I do have the unit mix. We've got 21 3-bedrooms and 6 4-bedrooms on site. So with that income averaging, we're at 57% on average throughout all the properties. And again, there's more 70s and 80s to offset bringing in 30s and 40s on site. And we've got those spread throughout. So we do have one 30% 4-bedroom, a 40% 4-bedroom, and then just really spread throughout. We should know about tax credit award in about November. And I've already kind of talked about all of our other considerations here regarding funding and what they're going out for the ECE. So I just, with a few minutes left, I just wanted to highlight a couple of things in this MOU, which is really, again, our pre-development agreement. So the major points in this that you can go ahead and read at your leisure and ask any questions if you come up with anything. Penrose would provide all guarantees for the funding sources for the project. So this is for construction completion and payment in terms of any financing that's required. So that is a big reason that LHA does public-private partnerships. And so LHA doesn't have to take on the guarantees itself, which is the huge financial risk. For our developer fee, we've negotiated an 80% split to Penrose, the developer, and 20% to LHA. This is really because Penrose is taking on most of the risk, but LHA is bringing in a good amount of gap funding and supports the city and LHA side of things. There's some specifics here on that SLP tax exemption fees. It's not the overall initial fee that's to be determined based on the new policy, but it's got the ongoing fees in here for us, including an asset management fee.
I have a question about that. Are they really wanting $7,500 per unit annually? Because that's $562,000. It's listed as that they get an annual fee of $7,500
Asset
slash
management fee.
Usually it's like $5,000 and then it increases each year like 3%. Is what I normally see, but I think there's language that's wrong.
So this one also says payable from cash flow after all fees payable to LHA have been paid. So if there's no cash flow, there's not an asset management. We could talk to Katie about this.
Yeah, I've never seen it for you. Something's wrong. I think something's there.
Yeah, there's usually an escalator written in.
Yeah. It's like it starts at 5,000 and then increases like 3% each year. Is usually what most of them are. Similar to what they
And
look
sometimes
like.
you can write it where the increase like comes out of the cash flow so that they know what the base amount is for their pro forma and their ops, their operating expenses, and then that's like a below the line benefit to us, but that might be a way to work it in if they're not agreeable to an escalator.
Okay, we'll check it out. It talks about the responsibility for pre-development costs and including making sure that LHA has our pre-development costs covered up to a certain amount, which is what we're finalizing right now. It talks about our property management and what that general agreement would be with a full property management agreement to come. Do you want to? And then it talks about at section 12 our year 15 rights. So there's a lot here. So we've got our right of first refusal option. This is a debt plus taxes right of first refusal in year 15. But if you keep going, overall Penrose is not interested in exiting this. Like I said, Crispin's development model is to come in, earn the fee, stabilize, and sell. Penrose is a long-term developer. They usually actually manage all their properties, and LHA managing this property is kind of new for them. They operate across the country, primarily East Coast, and they've got a very dialed-in model. And so what we put in here is if they are interested in selling, then LHA has certain rights, but generally they've told us that they're in this for the long haul, and LHA is okay with that as a well, we'll let the board decide on Tuesday. But generally that is not a model that we're not interested in.
So Kendra, are you saying 6% high?
No, what I'm saying is usually the asset management fee is, usually there's another third party that's actually we're sending the financials to. They're evaluating, they're monitoring, they're doing that piece of it, so they get an asset management fee. It usually starts out as a certain amount. It's usually anywhere from 5,000. Usually it's not a percentage. And then it increases every year. So each year they get like 3% added to it. And so they bill us, and usually it's always paid. But this seems like it's completely different. Like if they want 7,500 per unit, and I would have to talk with our finance or accounting, because we may have to approve for that. Because it's something that says they should be compensated for. And we approve the asset management fee for all of our other properties as well.
Yeah, but this is different because we're not doing that.
We're not doing that.
They're handling that accounting piece because that is within their system. They're hiring us as asset man. They're hiring us as property manager. So technically, they should be absorbing that work.
So we're not putting them in the yard? We're not doing their financials?
Yeah.
So we're not collecting them, right?
We'll collect rent, but in terms of the rental piece, we'll upload into their system. But this isn't a traditional, this is not a traditional development where we're managing we're managing intake and renting and leasing and things like that, but the other part of the agreement is in capital expenditures, that's gonna be their responsibility, not ours.
Well, and usually that's the case too, but they have a reserve account that we have to get approval to use. I mean, in our normal property.
Yeah, this is different because remember, they're doing all of the financing and they're the owner and they're hiring us to be the property manager. Just like Crispin 2 has hired a different company to be the property manager, they're hiring us to just be the property manager.
That's the 6%, right?
Yeah.
So, and I could be completely wrong, but last month I thought we threw out like 8% might be something we were considering for that property management fee. Was there like
That was for
negotiations?
Atwood.
Oh, sorry, that's right.
And that
that's
one where
not-
we're not, this one we're in the ownership structure and we get developer
Right,
fee.
right, okay. Gotcha, so, okay.
Yeah, so this will be a different deal compared to,
So are they supplying because this is all part of financials.
yeah.
So putting them in a unit, doing all the recertification, collecting the rent. If we're collecting rent, that's all part of financials. So we definitely.
Yeah, because they're on Yardi
Yeah.
too, because we did talk, when we talked to Penrose, they actually use Yardi as well. So when we talked about that interface, they indicated that would be actually easy because we're both on Yardi. So, in terms of,
We would have a different account structure than they might have. So it would have to be the property manager logging into their system if they're doing the financials. That's all I said.
So we haven't gotten into, this is supposed to be very 30,000 feet, and we haven't yet gotten into the nitty gritty of exactly who would do what when we actually end up doing our property management agreement. So let's talk to Katie about the asset management fee, but generally, this is not totally binding. We can still work to negotiate this over time. They just want to know, what does this deal generally look like before we submit tax credits and put our name on it and everything? So let's coordinate off on that.
yeah, think of this as an LOI, where we're setting out the base terms of the agreement and then.
Well, I know,
Yeah.
and usually the base terms is higher level, and there is always an asset management.
Yeah,
But it's worded completely different than this one. But maybe they don't have, I don't know who the investor is. Because usually it's.
We
the
don't have one
investor.
yet. We don't have one.
Oh, well,
That's
so
why
it's
we're
usually
early.
the investor that hits the asset management.
correct.
Let's follow up. We just, there's still room, not very much room till Friday, and Katie's on vacation, but let's follow up on that. Does anyone have any questions on the general terms of this MOU? It talks about who's responsible for what in preparation for, getting this deal to closing, not necessarily the long-term operations. And I know that we just handed this to you, so if you need to digest later and bring back any questions, go for it.
Let's go on to item number 7. Anybody have anything for resident quality of life? Number 8, LHA report, update on operations. Occupancy report.
As you will see, we are still sitting, all the properties that are currently leasing are sitting at 95% accumulated occupancy, which is great trend. We're hoping to even increase that over the next few months as we're getting a lot of these now recommend that we changed our waitlist procedures. So we're calling when units are getting noticed now. When we're getting notices on residents moving out, we are starting to pre-lease those way ahead. That was not happening prior. So changing our processes are showing to work. We added lower down into the meth units, and we did add 2 more meth units this past month over at Aspen Meadows neighborhood. Just got the test results, finalized test results yesterday. One looks like it's just a bathroom and laundry room that have to be kind of gutted and rebuilt. Everything else in the unit will stay, and the other one will probably be a complete rebuild. So, and then I did include our quarterly vacancy report that shows all the units that are currently down, and those long time down. Most of the ones that have been down for a long time were either previous meth units, or we have one at Aspen Meadows neighborhood C4. That was the one that had urine infest tanks that we talked about previously. Technology. So that one is rented and will be is already occupied now. They were moving in on the 6th. Otherwise, all these long-term units are ones that have been down for meth or bed bugs.
So what idea of how much meth costs this year?
Well, at the moment, I think more of it was last year because one, we're still waiting for habitat. So this year was, I think we spent $120,000 on the one that was, that we only got $100,000 for at
Village Fall River.
Yeah, we have so many. I can give you that number.
Most of these are
But
being
most of
covered.
it's most of them are
Insurance.
being covered with insurance, except for the one at A&M. Now I don't know if we'll have additional at the suites this year that won't be included, but
Nothing an increase in meth?
I would not say an increase. I think some of these we've caught lower. Some of it's just, I think we're staying about the same rate as last year. So, because last year we had ones pop up that we would never even suspected at Spring Creek and other properties. So.
What about evictions? How many evictions do you have projected for the rest of the year?
I can't project for the rest of the year. Currently, we only have one pending legal that we have hearing on Friday. But with all the changes of legislation, it's really trying to play through, because we used to be able to serve a 10-day demand for rent or compliance. Now it's all changed to 30 days. So it's just taken us longer to move through the process. And the one that we have a hearing on Friday, we had originally got a 10-day, but it fell right when legislation changed, and then we had to do a 30-day. That 30-day just expired 2 weeks ago, so now we're finally moving through the courts. So. I've been talking with Susan about that, and so we will see how Friday goes. Now we are required to do it with any new 30-day, but our attorneys feel, and talking to Susan Spalding and Mediation Services, that this case, because it was started prior to mediation going into effect, that we won't have to do it, but we will see. Because I know Boulder County threw out a whole bunch of cases last week due to the new stipulation that anybody with on Social Security, in affordable housing, anything like that has a right to mediation before we even file. And Tom Ward threw out a whole bunch of cases last week due to not meeting the mediation requirement. Judge Martin here in Longmont did not. So.
If anybody's, if I haven't gotten, I mean, the questions I keep asking, I keep getting the same, non-answer.
And there's a lot of legislation, just they're trying to figure out, because I've been talking to Susan for how they're going to do it here, because Longmont Mediation Services through the city will not be able to meet that requirement, I guess, right now, that the courts say we have to meet.
Well, I'm not sure, because I'm doing one tomorrow, next week.
Yeah, and so she has a meeting next week to find out if they will meet the requirement. It's all very complicated with all these new legislation changes and the mediation requirements. And
when do they kick in? They're like grandfathered, or?
Yeah.
The problem is, well, that legislation is one of the worst designed piece of legislation we've had in a while. It has kind of conflictions in it, and it doesn't.
Yeah, and so like Susan says, she's updating me as she's going to each of the courtrooms, what's happening, what's being thrown out, who's allowing what, and a lot of it's up to that judge to make the decision on how to interpret this new legislation at the moment. There's very little guidance.
The challenge, like with a lot of legislation that we've seen in the last probably 5 to 6 years, is not, they don't consider unintended consequences. And so when you see you can't do 10 days, you now have to go 30 days, that really puts owners in an odd position. And then when you have mediation, the capacity is, are we going to be able to absorb the mediation request based on the fact that now every landlord that has somebody that meets that requirement is going to be coming to us asking for mediation.
But the other issue is, there's still an argument about whether the city of Longmont can do it or whether they have to be done by ODR. Who
Correct.
has to do this?
Correct.
We get that clarification next week, so.
So we hope, right?
Yeah, we hope.
Lawyers I talk to is still saying, it's like you said, Tom's handling it one way, and Martin's handling it a different way, and depends on which judge you have to get left and get.
Exactly.
But I am scheduled to do one next week for Susan. And that was kind of the question I had is, I don't know if we're just taking a leap of faith here or what we're doing.
Yeah.
So I will tell you our numbers for health and remediation, which is just cleaning. We've spent about $13,000 between all our properties, and we have about $187,000 that we've spent towards insurance claims, which would include some of our meth units. I don't know, it probably includes that water.
The water damage, we've had a couple floods, some minor things too, so that's all.
That was tangentially connected to meth because the reason it.
No, it's not
There's
just,
not
no,
that
we
one.
had an AC
Oh, I
fail
thought you were
and
talking
had
about the other water damage.
subflooring.
Okay, so we're at 11 o'clock now. Is there anything else we want to discuss before we adjourn?
I just have a real fast question, okay? So on Briarwood, if we're looking at the potential of selling that, are you guys going ahead and filling in the units that are for rent? Are you working with the veterans on that, trying to get the veterans in anticipation of selling?
So we do have 3 vacancies, 2 of them are condemned to meth. At the moment, the third one, we're working, it's our project-based voucher, so we're gonna go through our list and see if anybody qualifies as a veteran, or if we have anybody who's already living at Briarwood, who's a veteran working with, VCP to see if we can move that project-based voucher over to that unit. So we're working through a few different scenarios right now.
But yes, as we look to fill, we want to fill with a veteran or somebody that qualifies, that way we don't create a different issue.
If we can.
If we can.
All right, so it's 11:01 or 11:02 now. Let's adjourn the meeting. Thank you so much, everybody.